And welcome to this Junior Cycle Higher Level Maths video where we're going to look at an applied arithmetic section, which is VAT. So in this video, we're going to cover how to calculate VAT given the price before VAT, calculate the price after VAT, calculate the VAT included given the price after VAT, calculate the price before VAT, and then also calculating the VAT rate. For anyone who studies business, you may already be familiar with VAT. For those who aren't, VAT stands for Value Added Tax, and it's a tax on goods and services that we have here in Ireland and in other countries. So in Ireland, this amount is usually included in the price we see displayed, which is different from if, for example, if you went to the US, their sales tax is given after the fact. So, for example, if you went into a shop in America, the price you see on the item itself, when you get to the till, you'll actually pay more. So for us, it's very convenient in Ireland. The VAT's already included, so we rarely think about that. However, it does make it a little bit tricky when working with these questions. Just to give you a little bit of background of the VAT rates that are currently in Ireland, and this is correct as of 2022. So we have a 23%, which is the standard rate. So that's what most goods and services in Ireland are going to be charged at. There's 13.5%, which is a reduced rate. So that includes things like coal, heating oil, and so on. There's a 9%, which is a second reduced rate, and hairdressing, amongst other things, are charged at this rate. There's a 4.8% reduced rate, which is specifically for agriculture. And then we have a 0% VAT rate, and that's for things like tea, coffee, food that's not processed. We have so like fruit and veg, etc., kids' clothes, kids' shoes, and medicines for humans and for animals, and then any disability aids. So we have a number of different VAT rates that we could be asked about in these questions. Sometimes, depending on what questions we look at, the VAT rate might reflect real VAT rates, or they may make the number slightly nicer. So as we look at ordinary level questions, just to get a sense of VAT in general, you might see the use of 20%, which is a nicer number to work with, compared to 23% or even 21%. That was our VAT rate at some point in the past, which meant some of our questions reflect that. So let's jump into VAT and let's look at a quick example using this lovely bar of chocolate as our example. So I go into the shop and I buy a bar of chocolate. The cost of the bar without VAT is €1. VAT is charged at the standard rate, i.e. 23% on chocolate. How much will we be charged for the bar? So again, this is something we don't necessarily have to deal with, but if you were the owner of the shop, this is something that you would need to consider. You need to consider how much is this item, and then we add the VAT on. So the VAT is 23%. So let's start off very easily and we find 23% of €1. You can do this using decimals. You can do this using percentage button. You can do it using fractions. I have a full video done on percentages and I've linked it in the description below if you want to go back over just the basics of percentages. But 23% of €1 is 23 cents. So the cost of the chocolate is the cost before we added on the VAT plus the VAT itself. So it's going to be the €1, which it was before we added in the VAT, and then the 23% VAT. So the total cost to us is going to be €1.23. And that's the price that will be either on the bar or on the shelf to tell us how much we have to pay when we go to the till. That's how much we are charged. So because the VAT is included, that kind of example we just did is more likely to be an ordinary level style question, and it's more likely that we'll have to work backwards. Now, working backwards is a challenge. It's tricky in the sense you need to remember how to do it. It's a very specific method, but once you get this method and you remember this method, actually calculation-wise, it's not so bad. So let's go back to our bar of chocolate. Now, if I asked you, right, we go to the shop and we pay $1.23 for this bar of chocolate, how much VAT was included? Now, we've the same we have the same percentage, so it's 23% VAT. We know that the €1.23 includes 23%. So I suppose what a very common way the students would approach this when we first started would be to say, let's find 23% and subtract it. Now, the problem is that's not going to work. Finding 23% of €1.23 and subtracting it won't work. And let me show you why. So 23% of €1.23 is 28 cents. And we know, because we've just worked it out in the previous example, that actually there's only 23 cents VAT in this price. So we've got too much VAT. We've been told using this method it would be 0.28, so 28 cents, which we know is incorrect. And if we subtract that, we find the cost before VAT is 95 cents, which again we know is very wrong because we've worked it forward the first time, which means we know it was €1. So I suppose, why does this method not work? And I suppose you might think it's a bit silly to try work the wrong way before you work the right way, but this is such a common error. And especially think of all the topics you have to do for your junior cycle exam. This might make sense today or while you're doing it or when you're revising it, but you need to be able to remember come your exams in June. So I suppose the best way to do that, the best way to remember it, in my opinion, is to understand it. So why does finding the percentage and taking it away not work? And the answer is, well, 23% of €1 is not the same as 23% of €1.23. And that might sound really basic. It might sound really obvious, but we make that mistake in exams because we're not thinking properly. So then the question is, well, if I can't find 23% to take it away, what else can I do? So we need to be very clear on this method. So how do we work backwards? We're going to have a few, I'm going to show you two main methods for how to work backwards. And these are kind of the two main ways students would work. So let's look at a brand new example with some brand new numbers. So we're gone from the chocolate. This time I've gone to buy a bottle of Coke. So it cost me €1.50 and it is charged at the standard rate of tax, which is 23%. How much VAT is included in the price? Just to say, your question will never expect you to know the standard rate of tax. We'll always be told in maths what the percentage rate to use is. So here's my bottle of Coke. So no matter which method I'm working with, I would always suggest to students that they make sense of the VAT. And this is, I suppose, it's not a formula that I would suggest learning off by heart, but it's a formula that I would know and understand because it's the basis for any VAT questions. And it will also kind of be a reminder of how to do the method. So the little formula is the price before VAT plus the VAT equals the price after VAT. Now that might sound a little bit tricky or confusing, but what we're actually saying when we say price before VAT, it's the smaller amount. It's the amount before the VAT was added on, so it was the price that doesn't include VAT. The VAT is then a percentage of that price before VAT, and then we have the price after VAT, which is the price after the VAT has been added on. Now, I'll always start this with percentages. So the price before VAT is 100%. That's the whole amount. We then add on 23% of that. And the price after VAT then is representing 123%. And that's the piece that means I can't find 23% of that and work backwards because it's not 100%. The price after VAT, the price including that VAT, is bigger than 100% because it already includes that percentage of VAT. So the price after VAT is 123%. And in this question, that's 150. So what we're going to do, we're going to use percentages and we're going to say, well, 123% is equal to 150. And we're looking for the price before VAT. So we're looking for 100%. So what we can do is we can find 1%, and if 123% equals 150, 1% will be 150 divided by 123. And then to get 100%, we multiply that answer by 100. So 150 divided by 123 is 0.012195. Don't round this too early because the multiplying by 100, if you round it to 2 decimal places, you're not going to get the right answer. So just be careful. I would leave as many places as you can. When we multiply that, we get 1.2195. Now that's my final answer. I am going to round because it is money, 2 decimal places. Cut it after 2. The next number is 9, which rounds up, so I get €1.22. So at this point, if students have done that, that's fantastic, and they think they're done, but they're not. So just be careful. The question asked how much VAT is included in the price. So I now go back to my little formula and I say, well, the price before VAT, I've just worked out the 100% is €1.22. I add some amount of VAT to it and I get 150. So you can get 23% of €1.22, but a slightly easier way would be to use subtraction, and that leaves us with 28% VAT on this bottle of Coke. So let's look at a second way that we can do this. So we have the exact same question, and I'm going to show you, well, I consider this a bit of a shortcut. I prefer it, but it's completely up to you. I don't know really, is it any shorter? I'm going to do this using the percentage method and then also the decimal method. They're much of a muchness. It really depends how you deal with percentages. Again, the percentages video where I talk about this in more depth is linked in the video or in the description below. So we start off with the same thing. We say, right, 123%. So we know that my answer, 123% of X. So I don't know the price before VAT, so I'm going to call it X. So 123% of X is 150. So then I'm going to use percentages here, which means I do 123% multiplied by X. So of means multiply. I will use my percentage button in the calculator. If I could put it in my calculator, at this point I can't. So I get 123% of X equals 150. To find X on its own, I divide both sides by 123%. So this is a division on both sides. And that means my X value is 150 divided by 123%. So that can go straight into the calculator as is, and it gives me €1.22. Now, I've written this out as algebra to start with, but I suppose you can go straight to the price after VAT divided by 100 plus whatever that percentage is. So that's why it's really a shortcut. You don't have to get into kind of doing a lot of calculations. You can do this very simply in one. If you're not mad about percentages, or if you use decimals, we can do the exact same thing using decimals. So we do 1.23, so rather than 123%, we're going to call that 1.23 times X equals 150. So 1.23 times X equals 150. So to get X on its own, we divide both sides by 1.23. So 150 divided by 1.23, and that gives us the exact same answer of €1.22. So you can see no matter which way I did it, we're still getting back to €1.22. I do use percentages most of the time, so mine will be the shortcut with percentages, but whichever one works best for you. As we're doing questions, you'll see how maybe we don't set this up as the algebra that we've done here. You can if you want, but this is why it's a shortcut. It will work much, much quicker. So finding the price without VAT included or the VAT amount can be tricky. So it's important that you're able to do this for higher level. And what I would say is anytime the percentage is already included, it doesn't have to be VAT, but anytime it's included, you're going to use the same logic. So I suppose whatever method you use, make sure you're using it consistently and you understand why you're using it. So if I go to the shop and buy a bar of chocolate, the cost of the bar without VAT is €1. VAT is charged at the standard rate, i.e. 23% on the chocolate. How much will I be charged for the bar? And you might be like, we just did this. Yes, we did. But I'm going to show you, I suppose, how I would suggest that students approach this, which is, again, kind of more of a shortcut, but it's a shortcut that lends itself very nicely to working backwards with the shortcut as well. So what I'm going to say is, well, I want the price with the VAT included. So I want the 100% plus the 23%. I want 123%. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go straight to finding 123% of €1. So what we did, if you can think back to how we approached this example earlier in the video, we found 23% and then added it on. What we do here with the shortcut is we added on 23%. So that gave us 123%, and then we found the percentage. So I suppose it didn't matter which order we did it, we still are going to get the same answer. It's just this is slightly easier because the adding piece, the 100% plus 23%, can pretty much be done in our head, which makes it a bit quicker. And this gets me straight to the €1.23. I again use percentages, so I get 123%. I use the percent button on my calculator. I multiply by €1 and I get €1.23. The only thing I'll say about the percentage button, if you're using Casio, you have to press shift and answer, and I think it might be slightly different on the old Casio, but if you're using Sharp is a little bit temperamental and the percentage would have to go at the end. So if you would like to use this method, but you're using a Sharp calculator, you'll have to use €1 multiplied by 123 and then click percentage, and then you don't even need to press equals, it will just give you the answer. If that's not working, we also have a decimal method. So using the exact same idea, but rather than 123%, we're going to use the decimal of 1.23. So 123% of €1 is 1.23 times €1, which is very straightforward as well. The only reason I suppose I prefer the percentages button is when the percentages turn into like 12.5 or 13.5. I find that percentage button is just that little bit easier, but generally speaking for junior cycle, we tend to get nice whole percentage numbers, so it's much of a muchness at this point. So just to kind of give you an overview or some things you need to know for value added tax, for VAT. VAT is value added tax. The price before VAT is the price without the VAT. Price after VAT is the price with the VAT included. And the VAT rate is the percentage of VAT. So if you want to screenshot this or if you want to jot them down, these will be the key ideas you need to know for VAT. So let's look at an example, and this is from the Junior Certificate Ordinary Level paper in 2016, and it said the total charge of the parts before VAT was 330. 75.90 VAT is charged on the parts. Find the percentage rate of VAT charged on these parts. Again, if you need to go back over percentages in general, the link is in the description below. So anytime we want to make a percentage, we start by making a fraction. So what fraction is the VAT? So that is 75.90 over 330. Anytime we make a fraction to make a percentage, we always put whatever the change is, so in this case the VAT, over the original amount, which is in this case the price before VAT. Once I have a fraction, to turn it to a percentage, I multiply by 100 or 100 over 1. I am just exceptionally lazy when it comes to putting it into my calculator. So for me, it's much easier just to type 100 rather than 100 over 1. 100 over 1 was more when we were in primary school and we were working these calculations out mentally rather than with the calculator. But for a calculator, 100 makes way more sense. But if you were in the habit of 100 over 1, that is perfect. The answer we get is 23%, which is our current standard VAT rate. So this is the 2014 Junior Cert High Level question from a sample paper. A meal in a restaurant costs Jerry €136.20. The price included VAT of 13.5%. Jerry wishes to know the price of the meal before VAT was included. He calculates 13.5% of $136.20 and subtracts it from the cost of the meal. Explain why Jerry will not get the correct answer. So the issue here is he's done exactly what I said that common error was. He has started, let's draw this out, but he has started with 136.20 and found the percentage of VAT, which is incorrect. So remember, we have price before VAT, that's the small amount. Then we add on the VAT, and that in turn gives me the price after VAT. Now, percentage-wise, we have 100%. We add on 13.5%, which gives us 113.5%. So the problem is this €136.20 is worth 113.5%. So getting 13.5% of that is incorrect because it should be 13.5% of the price before VAT. So it should be 13.5% of price before VAT. This is just to see, do you understand what's going on with this? We can do the calculation. So I'm going to do it over here and I'll say, right, I'm going to use my shortcut. So to get the price before VAT, I'm going to say, right, I have 136.20. I'm going to divide that by 113.5%. This is why I like percents, because if you change that to a decimal, it's going to be 1.135. And that's fine, but there's a lot that can go wrong with that extra decimal. So 136.20 divided by 113.5. Make sure you're putting in that percentage, and that gives me €120. That's what I meant by the shortcut. Now, the other method there is finding 1% and then working on 1% to find 100%, and that's absolutely perfect as well. Part 2 then says, from July 1st, 2011, the VAT rate on food and restaurants was reduced to 9%. How much would Jerry have paid for a meal after this date if the VAT reduction was correctly applied? So now we have the same idea before VAT. We now know that that was 120. We now have a new VAT rate, that's 9%, and then that will give me the price after VAT. Now, I'm going to use the shortcut for this as well. So the price after VAT is going to be 109% of 120. And you can do that as a decimal, 1.09 multiplied by 120. You can do that as a percentage, so 1.09 multiplied by 120. Sorry, 109% multiplied by 120. Whatever way works best for you. And then you get an answer of €130.80. So that was a sample question, which meant there was a bit of explaining in it. We generally don't see that kind of thing. To be honest, we haven't seen a huge amount of standalone VAT pieces, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something slightly different in this video. I'm going to give you a list of questions, and what I would suggest is for you to pause the video here, practice 1, 2, even all 5 of these questions. The rest of the video will be me going through these questions and working, I suppose, through the solutions, and you're welcome to use those as kind of more examples. But I would suggest, because there's very little more I'm going to show you, it's going to be quite boring in that respect, that I would, if I were in your shoes, pause the video and get to grips with the methods, decide which methods I like. Am I using shortcut? Am I using percentage? Am I using decimal? And work on that there. You can screenshot this and work them in your own time and then come back to the video by all means. I'll share a link to the video below or in the description below if you want to just download that file if that's easier. But pause now and then come back to me when you're ready to see the answers. So, welcome back. Hopefully you have worked through some, or if not all, of these questions, and I'm going to very quickly run through the solutions. Remember, this method that I'm going to show is not the method, it is one method. So if you did it slightly different but ended up with the same answer, that is absolutely perfect. So A clothing company sells a particular shirt in Spain for €59. The price includes VAT of 18%. The same shirt is available to buy in Ireland of $79.95. VAT in Ireland is 23%. So find the price of the shirt in each country excluding VAT. So there's a lot going on with this because we have to do the question twice, once for Spain and once for Ireland. So I'm going to use my shortcut. I know that in Spain, I'm going to have 100% plus my 18%, which gives me my 118%. And that 118% is €59. So that the amount that they're selling the shirt for means it is including VAT already. So I have 118% equals €59. Now you can work that way, but I'm going to very quickly have the price excluding VAT, means before VAT, is going to be €59 divided by 118%, or 1.18 if you prefer. So putting that into my calculator, I get 1.18 at €50. So it was €50 in Spain before VAT was added on. So then in Ireland, we have 100% plus we charge higher VAT, so that's 23%, which means we have 123% is the price after VAT. And that is $79.95. So I have 123% equals $79.95 to get the price excluding VAT. We're going to do $79.95 divided by 123%, and that gives us $79.95 divided by 1.23 if you're using decimals, and then I get €65. So that's interesting that we can compare that the price is higher in Ireland even after we've taken the VAT out, because looking at it you'd say, well, Ireland's more expensive, but maybe that's because of the tax, maybe that's because of the VAT, but actually it's not. So that's an interesting question. Again, I've just pulled parts of questions, so that question does go on and do other things, but just for us to focus on the VAT part. Question 2. A supermarket sells a single 32.5 gram packet of cheese and onion flavor crisps for $0.545. Now, you might be saying, oh no, how can we have half a cent? And that's because we are excluding VAT, so we will have to add VAT into that, and that can change. Sometimes when we have very small amounts where we rarely sell things individually, we can have half cents. So for example, if you've ever gone to get diesel or petrol, you'll notice that they don't necessarily have full cents because nobody generally goes in and buys 1 litre. They will be buying multiple litres. So for us here, we're told that the VAT rate is 23%. Calculate the price of a packet of crisps. Give your answer to the nearest cent. So we have, let's write our little formula. So we have price before VAT. That's what we're given here, which is 0.545 plus our VAT, which is 23%. And that should give us the price after VAT. Now I'm going to use my shortcut here, which means I'm going to do the adding first. So I'm going to say that's 123%, and that's what I want. So I'm going to get 123% of 0.545, and I can do that with decimal or with percentage. You can literally leave it as percentage if you want. You can also find 23% and add it on. This way is just a little bit quicker. And we end up with 0.67035. They want that correct to the nearest cent. So that is 67 cents. If they'd asked us for the actual VAT amount, finding 23% would make the most sense. But when we're being asked to find the price including VAT or after VAT, it's always much better to use the shortcut. It's much quicker. So question 3, a games console costs $329.99 including VAT. The current rate of VAT on games consoles is 23%. Calculate the price of the console excluding VAT. Okay. So they've used slightly different words. So the price before VAT is the same as the price excluding VAT plus my VAT equals the price. And they don't use after VAT, they use including VAT. So we have, this will be 100% plus 23% VAT means the price after VAT or including VAT is 123%, and that is $329.99. So I have 123% is equal to $329.99. I'm going to use my nice little shortcut for this. So price excluding VAT is going to be $329.99 divided by 123%, or 1.23 if you prefer your decimal. So 329.99 divided by, and we end up, and we give our answer to the nearest cent always because it's money. So 268.28455528. We cut it here. The next number is 4, so we'll leave that as just 2. 8. Question 4. Lisa sold a cake in the shop. It cost $9.08 after VAT of 13.5 is included. Find the cost of the cake before VAT. So you can get slightly quicker at these and go, well, 908 is worth 113.5. So if I divide that, I'll get my right answer. Again, when we're dealing with percentages with decimals, I much prefer this percentage method. I just think students have less to deal with mentally when they're working with it. So we get that very simply as €8 as the cost before VAT. So like I said, shortcut, and you can see how I haven't even used that kind of algebraic piece. And you can use it, and I suppose let me just very quickly show you. So I could do 113.5% of some number is 908. So we end up with 113.5% of x, 908, and then you do the division. But I suppose a simpler way to think about these is, you know, if I wanted to get that 908, I would have multiplied by 113.5. So to work backwards, I divide by the 113.5%. So that's why I like the two shortcuts. They work really well together. They're quite obvious opposites. In one, we multiply by 113.5%, and then to work backwards to get the smaller number, we end up dividing. And even to bring it that way, that the bigger number, if we want the bigger number, we multiply by 113.5%, and to get the smaller number, we divide by 113.5%. Remember, the biggest thing here is to figure out a method that works for you and to understand it. So our last question is, a Fitbit costs €180, which includes VAT at the rate of 23%. Work out the cost of the Fitbit before VAT. Give your answer correct to the nearest cent. So again, I have 180. That includes the VAT. It's the bigger number, so to make it smaller, we're going to divide by 100 plus the 23%, so 123%. So, you know, when I said at the start that this is difficult, I suppose it's not a difficult, that is not a difficult sum on the board or on your screen, but what we do have, it's a tricky idea to remember. So that's what your focus should be. So when I do that, I get 146.34. Keep coming back to those 5 questions. Do them again and again. They're really good practice. Like I said, there is a printout that you can take using the link below that includes these 5 questions if you want to take them, print them out, put them in your revision as something to kind of circle back to again and again to make sense of the VAT. Until it makes so much sense you're not even thinking about it, you're just doing your method correctly.